mail campaign playing as Japan. We're now doing the setup for the January 9th, 1942 turn. Where we left off, we had a bunch of Bettys getting cap-trapped over Surabaya in exchange for some relatively low-value ships. Some cruisers popping up in the Solomons, possibly trying to intervene in my early amphibious operations against the Solomons, just as they're basically getting started. And we're also kind of in... we're advancing on the ground in Malaya, but the air campaign over Singapore, we're still kind of struggling with to get right. It's just kind of looking over the numbers for the last turn. We did have a moderate point gain, nothing too spectacular, and this is mostly due to Army casualties. Not too much else going on as far as point gains. In the air, we didn't have the greatest day in the world. Overall losses 16-9 in the enemy's favor, and these losses are, it's really the Bettys getting cap-trapped that are leading that up. That said, they did have to pay a bit of a price for that. Most of our flights were escorted, even if they weren't well escorted, so they did lose 8 fighters, along with their 1 Kingfisher that they lost operationally. They lost more fighters than we did. It's something. Overall, a loss for us in the air, though. For ships sunk, the only ships sunk were the tanker and the minesweeper that we got at Surabaya. Also worth mentioning is that the Dutch submarine 016 came off the kill list, as it was apparently confirmed by intelligence to still be in service. We're narrowing the victory point gap gradually, especially as we're grabbing onto territory. As you can see, in terms of air losses, it's been pretty quiet lately. Certainly not anywhere near peak activity. Getting back to the map, we still have our ubiquitous presence of enemy subs off Tokyo and still nowhere else, so we're just sustaining that operation. In China, we don't have enough in Wenchao to take it, and the units that are following them up, just an additional 63 AV ain't happening. You just have to bite the bullet on this. We simply do not have enough army strength on the south-central coast of east-central. Sorry, I keep forgetting sometimes that north is up on an angle. But the central coastal area, we don't have enough. So I've ordered everybody here to basically pull back to Chusin. We're just going to let them have Wenchao for a while. Maybe he'll get bold and stupid and he'll come out of Wenchao and might have an opportunity to defeat someone in detail there. But for now, that is what it is. And, maybe the units pulling out can serve as a bit of a reserve force to deal with enemy units in the vicinity of Nanchang or something along those lines. We are still waiting for additional forces up here around Shenyang, so nothing going on there yet. Continue to move towards this rail to clear the lines, and elsewhere we've pretty much removed all our obstacles from these roads, so we're just proceeding. And this little jerk we defeated last turn, but he stayed on the rail line, so we're still chasing him. Rangoon's pretty quiet. We've got some ships in port that I'd like to hit. Whether we actually hit them is just going to depend on whether they have other targets in good weather. It's very likely the ships that are stationed in Rangoon are staying there because they're already damaged. So hopefully they'll stay. In Malaya, forecast is for thunderstorms again. Because of that, I'm pretty much doing what I did last turn. Nels are still authorized to attack Singapore. Hopefully, maybe someday they'll carry the 800 kilogram bombs. But for the time being, we're going to continue to try to give our fighters some rest so that they don't have to escort the bombers, and then hopefully we'll get better performance on a day when we have better weather and we're likely to get better results. All the way up at Singora, during the combat replay phase, this upgrade actually went through. So these guys went from from Nate's to Oscar 1 Charlie's, so we should have them online in a matter of days. Actually, I can just tell you. They'll be online in 5 days. So here's probably the most significant development of the turn. We bombed the enemy ships at port, sinking a minesweeper and a tanker, but the development was that that strike gave us some feedback on who is in the port. And as you can see here, that reportedly includes as many as 5 heavy cruisers. I'm going to go out on a limb and say most of those are actually light cruisers, with the possible exception of the Repulse. But 27 ships in port is a really big deal. Now, something to keep in mind before I go right after them, we have a bit of a fighter presence here and a significant bomber presence. We have 33 fighters that can move right over there from Makassar. Possible enemy fighter presence in Kopang that seems to be down to 2, but we'll see about that. And also 20 mostly AVG fighters in Palembang, all of which can rebase to Surabaya if they think that a strike is coming to hit these ships. And of course, since our carrier battle group attacked the ships that were not in port but were just kind of cruising around in harbor, as formed task forces, they know we're here. So kind of the obvious move right now is for them to beef up their cap. And if I try to defeat, a base that could have as many as 50 fighters defending, with realistically just about 18 fighters of my own, because the fighter squadrons are 18 and I'm going to leave at least half of them behind to defend the carriers, it seems pretty likely that I'm going to waste a lot of aircraft. So I think what the smart move here is, instead of going right after Surabaya, it's to try to hold these ships here. Because let's face it, things are closing in on them. I've got, a base at Kuching. Betties there are in range. I don't want to send Betties there at the moment because they're, getting cap trapped. Speaking of which, let's, if this is 16, let's say 13, right? Because we don't want that happening again. Now that's a search that can stay. These guys are already limited. Yeah. So, no more getting cap trapped at Surabaya. But once we are able to reduce the fighter presence here, we can send bombers from Kuching. We're about to take Kendari. That would bring more Betties in range. Not quite within 0 range, but we can take Makassar right after that and start sending fighters to sweep. We're getting ready to take Balikpapan. That would put bombers and potentially fighters in range. So the news is tightening around Surabaya. I'm not necessarily in any hurry to destroy these ships if they're in harbor. The issue is what happens if they leave. So, Carrier Division 2, instead of going right after Surabaya, they're going to guard the back door. I'm having them go at flank speed for this move. We're going to get a little bit of an ASW patrol in this gap, because this is the most dangerous spot in this transit. And we're just going to sit out here, and if they decide to run out through here, they're going to run right into me. If they decide not to run away, then they're going to get bottled up and wiped out eventually. If they decide to go this way, then they're going to be subject to Betty and Nell raids out of Kuching. And hopefully we'll spot them if they do that. And then we can just vector the carriers in. One quick thing I want to do now that I'm mentioning them trying to get away through here. Yeah, we do want to make sure my bombers are going at least 14 hexes. So I did 14, 13. Yeah, you're doing 14. There we go. That's better. So, they go this way, bombers. This way, carriers. Stay in place, news closes in. Makes me happy. Also, I don't know who this is, and since it's a single ship, it's probably not important in any case. That is where the carriers are going, so if it is somebody important, we probably get a strike on him. We contacted a loaner out here, too. I don't know who this is, but we have service assets over here in Babeldoab that are ready to respond. So they'll just be patrolling ahead of their expected movement, and maybe we'll find them. Of course, we also have Bettys in naval strike mode operating out of Ambon. If they're redetected, they may draw a strike. And the baby KB is about to pull into port at Babeldoab. So there's a potential Kate strike with them. In terms of closing the noose here, I would also like to get another carrier division in. But that's a little complicated at the moment because we have as many as 5 enemy ships here, including heavy cruisers. So Division 3 would be the most likely to respond, but they're low on fuel as it is, and they already have a target. So I'm dealing with the target that's in front of me for now. I think it's likely that these guys are just going to step on the gas and evacuate, and there's really nothing I can do about that if that's the case. I'm certainly not going to try to pursue at high speed with this carrier division that's very low on fuel. In the meantime, I do have the replenishment group filled back up and on their way back out, and I'm going to have them step on the gas since there's a bit more urgency than there was before this turn. So we'll have them meet up in a couple days. I still need to consider whether I want them to stop in port and completely rearm and replenish. That's probably going to be the smart thing. And then, of course, we have Carrier Division 1. It is fully armed and ready to go. So maybe it actually gets the call to take station there northwest of Darwin. In any case, it's leaving, it's going to the Solomons, and then I'll reroute it as appropriate afterwards. One last thing before we tie this off. Luzon, getting close to the end game here. We're ready to attack. The tank divisions, regiments, have arrived. So we're going to go ahead and wipe these guys out. For now, the bombers are going to keep working these guys over since they're still, on paper, the stronger unit. That said, once that's done, we'll be able to resume our bombing against Clark Air Base, which is kind of important because those 22 fighters that are reported there are probably getting repaired unless Clark's completely out of supplies, which it probably isn't. So we need to disable the airbase, we need to disable those fighters, and this has been a little bit of a distraction, so it's good that it's coming to an end. Elsewhere, we're just kind of tracking these guys down. I've got a few of these guys, this company, and this isn't stated to be a company, but you look at its strength, it's not any stronger than a company. So those two companies are going to go to Davao. That's going to be the garrison there, since there's a garrison requirement of 20, so that'll free up the tank regiment that ended up there. And then we have ships headed for Cagayan that are going to be ready to pick up the victorious units after we finish off this group of 4 enemy units that used to be the Cagayan base forces. So between, the Kimura Det, 1st NSLF, and this regiment here, which I think these were the guys that took Wake in Guam, the 144th. We're going to have all these guys available to head over to Balikpapan pretty soon. And these guys are crossing a river, so let me check on that. Yeah, we want to have them in combat mode when they cross. This is a defeated unit, so I'm not too worried about having to shock attack them. So that'll go pretty well. And that's going to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and close this off, and we'll see you for the combat replay. Thanks for watching. Combat replay for January 9th, now in progress. Surprised we picked that up by proximity. It's all the way on the other side of enemy-occupied base. Alright, so these are the reinforcements to Kandari arriving, so we should have enough to take the base tomorrow. Sounds like somebody hit a mine. So this looks like a destroyer. Yeah, destroyer Balch. That's encountered Carrier Division 2. I don't expect either task force will want to press the attack. And they break off. Unfortunately, that means the enemy knows exactly where my carriers are. 7 allied ships reported in that area, unless that was my carrier battle group with a false report. This sort of thing happens all the time. Let the Nels go to Singapore, and they did, and the enemy has increased their cap. For a moment there, it looked like we hadn't brought enough, but their numbers are back up to where they should be. So this should go okay. The fighter numbers relatively even. And we're getting more arrivals, which is weird. Usually late arrivals are for caps, not escorts. Oh, we get all of them through. And we're just hitting with baby bombs. Lose 1 Nel on the way out. Don't know why our fighters aren't handling this. Hopefully this will be the last attack we need to put on these enemies here. Transition targets back to Clark Air Base. That was a very effective strike. I thought I turned these off. Apparently I did not. Oh, you know what I did? I have the close aircraft from Quanton on it with attack orders while I'm resting Puerto Barrio. Of course they're hitting the Prince of Wales. Bomb something else. There are so many ships in port. Of course, there's not really many aircraft left for the sweeps to go after. We get 1 Buffalo. bad. It's a pretty effective strike for an enemy unit under cover. That's not bad either. 12 combat squads disabled in the rough of the mountains. Seems completely pointless sending Kingfishers to bomb the troops landing in Kandari. You know, we've detected an enemy destroyer in, I don't know, what would we call that, the Southern Ocean, since it's south of the Java Sea, and we go all morning without sending an airstrike after it. There we go. Well, I don't care to have lost Betty. We're bombing from pretty low, so that's why. But we've got heavy damage on 2 ships, including a destroyer escort, which they don't have too many of. Not bad. Also appears we have surface contacts in the Celebes Sea. I would hope we'd have some Bettys go after them. Whoa! This could be a problem. Alright, gonna take some casualties here. This is VB2. So these are left over from the Lexington. Okay, so I was wrong about casualties. 14 enemy aircraft, and they get nothing. Even though we've only got 1-0 fighting them. Guess the anti-aircraft fire from those cruisers helped. Here we go. Let's finally get one of these guys. Of course. Just immediately out of ammo. Because we couldn't have one of the ships that's still fully loaded find that sub. Alright, so Cabanatuan. We don't force a retreat or a surrender. But we are causing disproportionate casualties. So there is that. I think it's the vehicle losses that are going to end up being most important. We're definitely outpacing them there. Unfortunately, we're going to have to keep the pressure on with the bombers. Yeah, definitely have enough here. Could probably get those ships out of there. Supplies aren't going to be an issue. Ching's gotten up to size 5. Alright, so that was a really uneventful turn. We did not get really any official contact on that destroyer, so I don't know where he ended up. And guess we don't know who this is. Alright, so I'm going to leave it there. We will do the complete post-turn analysis and setup in the next video. So thanks for watching. We'll see you then.